Hey guys, how's it going? How was your Halloween weekend? All right, so today I'm going live a little bit later. We have the deadline for the Greater New York ACSM November meeting today, so some of your peers, classmates, and I are trying to finalize our abstract and submit it by midnight tonight. So that's why I'm going live a little bit later. Also, if I look a little bit tired, it's because I am, but it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be great. Two chapters for today. We're covering athletic injuries and unhealthy and addictive behaviors. I also, as I'm always doing, I'm usually doing. I want to talk about what you submitted, what you have submitted, but before doing all that, I want you to know that I moved office hours, the office hours for this week. I moved them from, excuse me, from tomorrow to Wednesday, same time from 8 to 12:30, but we're gonna have them on Wednesday. Now, one more thing, and I'm gonna show it to you on our Moodle side as well. We'll have a synchronous meeting on Thursday. I'm not wrong. It's at 11. So I'm gonna go ahead, share my screen, go to Moodle. Here we are. Here we are. And this is week 11, right? Week 11. Okay, so let's go here. LO18, I have my notes here. 89%, the average score. Awesome. LG18, 96%. Even more awesome. LO19, 89% again, and LG19, 94%. So the average scores are, sorry, are pretty high. I'm very pleased. I'm proud of you. Keep it up. Okay, we're doing great. And those were for the well-being and the adherence. Now for this week, I'm going to be covering, as I said, athletic injuries, addictive and unhealthy behaviors. And we have LO20, LG20, LO21, LG21. And as I mentioned already, we have our third synchronous meeting. We're gonna most likely have 5. So I'm gonna most likely have one just before the week before Thanksgiving, and then the last one during finals week. In all of them, we're meeting so we can talk about the course. If you have any questions, any feedback, negative, positive, anything, but also you can get extra credit. Yes, right? So uh, this Thursday at 11, we will have 45 minutes. We don't have to use all 45 minutes, but that will be, that time slot is available. So log in, let's talk, and get some extra credit. Sorry, as well. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing this, and I'm gonna start with chapter 20. 21 is a little bit shorter than 20. 20 is a little bit shorter than 21. No, that's not it. Bro, you share the same thing. There we go. Athletic injuries, right? Okay, so let's see if this is working. Excellent. So, how many of you had an injury, like playing, well, exercising or playing sports, right? And how many times you felt that it wasn't just the physiological factors or variables that you had to work on so as to recover, but also the psychological part as well, right? And that's the part we're gonna mainly focus on today. I want to share some numbers and pretty much show you that it's very common to get injured throughout your career, um, whether like you're an elite athlete or recreational athlete or any kind of level. There are a lot of exercise and sport related injuries per year. okay? ACLs. And as you can see here, physical factors are the primary cause of injury, but psychological factors can also contribute. All right, what is injury? So let me move this. Okay, so injury, I'm gonna just read it, is defined as trauma to the body or its parts that results in at least temporary, but sometimes permanent, physical disability and inhibition of motor function. So that is the definition we're using for this course and for this chapter. So we have several causes of athletic injury, and I'm not going to be covering all slides as I usually don't go over everything. I stay on the important stuff or the more complicated stuff. So we have the physical factors. Example, muscle imbalance, right? Your quads are way stronger than your hamstrings. That's not very good, right? Social factors. So, and we'll talk about that. It's like those toxic, sometimes hyper masculine environments or subculture that we see in sports. So you will become a hero if you play injured, right? And we'll have so many examples about that. Psychological factors, definitely. And then we'll have personality factors. We don't have a lot of data to support that. Stress levels play a huge role. This is where I want to stay for a little bit. The stress-injury relationship. Athletes with higher levels of life stress experience more injuries. Also, we'll have a link between negative life event stress with injuries. This is the general model of the stress-injury relationship. You can see that on the left side, we'll have a stressful situation. That can be anything, including practice or game this Sunday, right? And then you have the personality factors, history of stressors, coping resources, psychological skills, intervention that happen. And then you have that perception of threat that we talk about. And it's going to be like, based on the perception, we're going to have the response. And based on the response, we'll have an effect on the anxiety, which again has to do with the muscle tension and the distractions that we're going to feel, which all this could lead to injury. So we start with a potentially stressful situation. Then we have the personality of the person and the availability of these resources. And then we have, of course, our perception of that threat that could or could not lead to injury. The greatest stress sources for injured athletes were not the physical aspects, but the psychological ones. Okay, stress management techniques work. Of course, it's complex, and this is an explanation. We'll have attentional disruption, right? You can regulate your attention, and that's not good. You make mistakes. And we'll have muscle tension, so increased muscle tension when you're not supposed to be tense can, of course, increase the probability of injury. And now we're going, already I mentioned that giving 100% attitude, no pain, no gain attitude. If, as you can see, if you're injured, you're worthless because your coach cannot use you. So you kind of being pushed to play while injured, right? And you see other mottos like winners never quit, quitters never win, the machismo mentality, and that's associated with mental toughness that you know that I've been researching. And we do know, for example, that athletes with really high levels of mental toughness, that's the dark side of mental toughness, can affect their rehabilitation process in a bad way because they're trying to get back into playing sooner than they should. So all these models are not very healthy. And if you go to any collegiate gym, you'll see something like no excuses. And so we get it, but they also increase injury. when you are cultivating a culture of hypermasculinity, then you accept norms that may lead in situations like that you have higher percentages of injuries. Just have that in mind. These are the physiological components which are great, but we're not really focusing on that. Not in concussions either. You can find that in your book. We talked about concussions, sorry, in the Analyzing Human Movement course. This is the 5-step of response when we have an injury. I'm sure you know that, right? The denial, the anger, bargaining, depression, and then the acceptance and reorganization. A lot of times, though, you can go back and forth, or you can skip. Like it's not the order is not exactly like that. But supposedly, if I am depressed, you know where I am. So I'm in step 4, which means I'm pretty close to step 5, which is me accepting what happened and trying to adjust my life pretty much. Another way to see that you have 3 general categories of emotional reactions. So we have that in the beginning, we're trying to see if you're injured. Remember when you got injured, you were like, am I okay? Like you're trying to touch your leg or whatever, you felt it, you're trying to step on it, you're trying to figure out if you're really injured or you can walk it off or something, right? And then you figure it out, you're injured. It hurts, you're on the floor, you're just admitting it in a way, right? So then you have all this negative reaction about why me and how it happened and all this. And I'm sorry, again. The third one is pretty much accepting it, coping with it, adjusting, moving forward. So for us, as coaches or exercise physiologists or exercise psychologists, or even as an athlete that got injured or a teammate of an injured athlete, what we're trying to do is move that person quickly to category number 3. The more you stay in category number 2, the worse it's going to get, and the longer the rehabilitation, and the results are not going to be that great. So you need, I know it's easy when you talk about it, it's really hard when it's happening to you, but for you and others that get injured and people that you may mentor tomorrow or you coach tomorrow, may coach tomorrow, you need to move them fast from 1 to 3. And especially don't stay, like phase 1, they're not going to stay there long anyway. Phase 2 is the problem. Move them quickly, as fast as you can. Make them realize that it doesn't matter now to understand it or see start what if scenarios. What if I had gone to the left and not to the right? And it doesn't matter. Let's accept it and let's work towards getting back. Okay. Of course, very easy to say it, much harder to actually do it when it happens to you. Other reactions, of course, identity loss, fear, and anxiety that you will never play again or you will never play at that level. You lose confidence, you lose performance. You do sometimes. You let's say ACL may result in some loss of explosiveness, right? And the group processes, they can be positive or negative. Like when your top player, your best player get injured, the whole team gets kind of disorganized, or because your top scorer got injured, then everybody has to step up. Okay. Those are signs. Okay. Nothing really important here. A holistic approach is needed because, again, what we're trying to prove here, and I'm pretty sure you understand that, is not just physiological factors. We need to address the psychological factors if we want the athlete, I'm sorry, to recover 100%. Okay? Imagery is really helpful in injury rehabilitation. So you will hear a lot of times sports psychologists talk about imagery when we're talking about injury rehabilitation. This is a figure that we have in our book. Um, what I want to say is that talk a little bit about the third phase, and again emphasize on the fact that just getting physiologically ready, it doesn't mean you're ready, because in order to rehabilitate fully, you need to be psychologically ready as well. Okay, and that's what the third thought says pretty much. Okay, sure. Social support is very important indeed, but that's nothing that you can read by yourselves. And that's it with this chapter, right? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, close this one, um, go to chapter 21, and talk a little bit about um, addictive and unhealthy behaviors. That's a little bit longer as a chapter, and we're gonna hear some pretty important stuff, such as um, disorder eating and eating disorders, sexual harassment, gambling, um, substance use and abuse, and we have a lot of issues, especially not especially, but it's very interesting that these happen on the collegiate level as well. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today, which I just covered, and these are some examples. When I teach that in class, I usually show some videos from Tim Donahue, at the end, the referee, or the skater that talked about his eating issues. And other videos that talk about unhealthy behaviors in sport. Let's talk about anorexia nervosa. Okay. According to APA, and I'm gonna read that as it is, you need to have all these four characteristics: weight loss 15% below normal, intense fear of gaining weight or being fat despite being underweight. That's very important, right? Disturbance in one's experience of body weight, size, and shape, and that's only in females. You have at least the absence of 3 consecutive menstrual cycles. Okay, so the first 3 for men, or for women. It could be deadly, 5%, right? But also you see that there is an association with suicide, committing suicides, 50% higher in that category of people compared to general population. That's pretty important. If you know anybody that has any of the things we talk about today, please, you can talk to me. You can talk to somebody at the health center. Try to find a professional. Let's help them out. They need help, and they need to be helped by a professional. Okay? Even if this is you, please reach out. There's going to be anonymity and confidentiality kept at all stages, right? The thing is that people who have these kind of conditions need to be helped sooner than later and need to be helped by a professional. Nothing to be ashamed of, nothing, okay? I want to send this positive message out since we're talking about these things. Bulimia, not so deadly. Here, as you can see, we have episodic eating pattern of uncontrollable food binging followed by purging, and is characterized by an awareness that the pattern is abnormal, fear of being unable to stop eating voluntarily, depressed mood, and self-depreciation. So, again, not that deadly. Bulimia could lead to anorexia. These are the APA characteristics that you should have: recurrent binge eating, a sense of lack control over eating behavior during the binges, engaging in regular self-induced vomiting, use of laxatives or diuretics, strict dieting or fasting or vigorous exercise in order to prevent weight gain, average minimum of 2 binge eating episodes a week for 3 months, persistent over concern with body shape and weight. That's again from APA. This is disordered eating. So we talked about eating disorders, and now this is disordered eating. Disordered eating covers a spectrum of exaggerated eating patterns involving increased health risks. Anorexia and bulimia are the extremes of disordered eating. So there are many other things in between the extremes, and that is called disordered eating. Disordered eating could lead to eating disorders. Not necessarily, but it could, right? Eating disorders are often seen as a female affliction, but that's not true. That's not true at all. Okay, and that comes with, like, when a male has something like that, there's more stigma. Okay, you see the prevalence: 1.5% in women, 0.5% in men, 3.5% in women, 2% in men. These are really disturbing if you read them. 40-60% of high school girls diet, 13% of high school girls purge, 30 to 40% of high school junior high girls worry about weight, 40% of 9-year-old girls have dieted, 5-year-old girls are concerned about diet. Crazy, crazy. Um, of course, in sports we have issues because we have weight classifications or weight categories, and that's an issue always. But there are other reasons why. We're going to talk about them in a second. Um, these are the predisposing factors, as I said: weight restrictions and standards, pressure from colleagues and peers, sociocultural factors, performance demands, judging criteria. Think about bodybuilding, for example. Critical comments about body shape and weight, genetic and biological factors. I want to stay here a little bit. Like, the environment is great, but we have research that shows, an actual meta-analysis that shows that we need to research environment, but also at the same time, we need to see it paired with the biological factors. And mediating factors is some personality traits that I may have, but we don't have a lot of evidence about them. Okay. Again, as I said, if you know somebody, help them out. You are helping them out. Staying silent is not helping them out. You're not a good friend. You're not a good roommate. You're not a good sister or brother or boyfriend or girlfriend or anything. If you notice something like the conditions we are describing today, explaining today, and you say nothing. Nothing right here. Okay, so let's talk about substance abuse. Let's start with numbers. 98%. That's a question that they asked elite athletes, and it's funny what they answered. So they answered that 98% of elite athletes said they would take a banned performance-enhancing substance with two guarantees: they would not get caught, and then they would win. And 60% said they would do so even if it meant they would die from the side effects. Okay. Some people get think that's kind of weird, or like too high, 60%. But if you've really been competitive and you're an elite athlete and this is your life, although we're not supporting that opinion, it kind of, at least it doesn't surprise me. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, so what is this substance abuse? So we have, again, according to ABA, we have A maladaptive pattern of psychoactive substance use indicated by one of two patterns of use: continuing use despite knowledge of having a persistent or recurring social, occupational, psychological, or physical problem, and recurrent use in situations in which use is physically hazardous. And then also, we need persistence of some symptoms of the disturbance for at least 1 month, or repeated occurrence over a longer period of time. Okay, that's how APA defines substance abuse. This is drug addiction, a state in which either discontinuing or continuing use of a drug creates an overwhelming desire, need, and craving for more of the substance. Prevalence. Alcohol is pretty high, 55 to 92% of high school athletes, 87 to 88% of college athletes. We're drinking a lot, okay? PEDs, 5% of high school and collegiate athletes, about 40 to 60% among elite athletes. And some data from 2003, 1 in 16 high school students use steroids. Pretty interesting. Again, a lot of alcohol use. About 80% of college athletes drink, a higher percentage than non-athletes, which is weird because you're an athlete and you should be taking care of your body, right? But you drink more. Steroids, teens, 4 out of 10 say that their decision to pursue the PEDs was inspired by professional athletes. So that's a huge thing. You're trying to be your idol, and you think your idol is using, or you know your idol is using, you're trying to do the same thing. Nothing really here. Females are not using as much as males, but they do, and it's going up. Why would you use drugs? Enhance performance, makes sense. Rehabilitate injury. It helps you with rehabilitation. I don't know if you knew that, but it does help you with rehabilitation. Of course, you look better, and sometimes you're trying to control your appetite or lose weight. That goes back to looking better. Sometimes. You see the psychological factors: escape from reality. Sometimes building confidence, seeking thrills, especially some drugs that make you do things that you wouldn't do otherwise. If you have a lot of extrinsic motivation, you're doing to get those rewards, and sometimes to increase your, if you have low self-control. So we put you in an environment that they take drugs, and boom, you start taking drugs as well. These are the social reasons, and this is again the emulating athletic heroes. Goes back to you're trying to be your athletic hero, and sometimes they are using, or you think they're using, and you're using as well. These are the PEDs, the major category stimulants, narcotic analgesics, which means that they are there to reduce pain, right? Anabolic steroids and peptide hormones, they're there to increase performance. Beta blockers, they are classic for people who are trying to control heart rate. So like pistol shooters, right? They're having a pistol and they're trying to relax. So I don't know if you knew that, but these people use PEDs as well, but they're just different. They're exactly the opposite of one, the stimulants, okay? And diuretics, especially if you're trying to lose weight or look better, or both. Side effects, of course, these are examples of alcohol and smoking. I don't care about the models. It's too much for this course. Oh, okay. Is there addiction to exercise? What is addiction to exercise? Well, if you have withdrawal symptoms after 24 to 36 hours without it. So we'll have positive addiction and we'll have a negative addiction. Usually addiction is meant to be used in a negative way, but here, as you can see, we have positive and negative. So you can have a healthy habit, which is a condition in which exercise is viewed as important in your life, but it is successfully integrated with other aspects of your life. When it's not successfully integrated and you build your life around, for example, the gym, then you may have a negative addiction. Because sometimes you neglect other things in your life, as you can see, your family, work, school, responsibilities, in order to go lift. Sexual harassment. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon. And we have the examples of US gymnastics, right? You all saw what happened there. And during the trials, I was, whew, I usually play that video in class. It's hard to watch. Uh, be careful. If you know something, say something, please. And, and the last thing for today will be compulsive gambling. Long history, it's happening, and it's really happening in NCAA. And I remember when I used to coach at Baylor, one of the very first things they told me was do not talk about injured players on social media. And I remember that was 8, 9 years ago, and NCAA was really pushing against gambling, and they were trying to communicate that if you give out that information, people who are into gambling are going to use it for that. So please just keep it private, whatever is happening. I still remember that. You see that there's a lot of gambling in NCAA, the collegiate level. Um, what else? Those are the signs. The last thing I want to talk about is this: Gamblers Anonymous 20 questions. Well, if you answer, look at all of them, the 20. If you answer yes to 7 or more, you're most likely a compulsive gambler and you need professional help. Okay, so you can take that uh, by yourselves. Again, if you have 7 yeses or more, most likely you are a compulsive gambler. That was it for today. I'll stop sharing my screen. All right, guys. Office hours on Wednesday, synchronous meeting on Thursday. Let me know if you need anything. In the meantime, guess what? Lift intentionally, not have